So it's time for me to discuss my beloved Boston Celtics. They're probably going to get the 3 seed. They're 3 games behind Toronto. They're 2.5 above Miami. So they're probably going to face the 6th seed. And before we get into that, though, just talking about the Celtics, just the team, before we talk about matchups, we would hope that Kemba is healthy. We would hope that the team just picks up right where it left off on Tatum being the primary everything. Shot taker, probably not ball handler, but leading the team in shot attempts and getting his ISOs and his step back threes, and you would hope that Tatum keeps up the aggressiveness. We would imagine that he will. And I think Gordon Hayward's situation is very interesting because to me, when he's really playing well and isn't caught in the corner too much, I think the Celtics are very difficult to beat. Because at that point, you got, Kemba, Jalen, Tatum, and Hayward. That's 4 guys who average, 17 points and up or something like that. I feel like Hayward has fallen a little, I don't want to say fallen, but I feel like he has kind of become the second passer on the team outside of Kemba. But if Hayward is picking up the aggressiveness and beating his guy off the dribble sometimes, then I think that's just really tough to defend. You're talking about 4 guys, 3 of them who are pretty tall, who can go off the dribble, make a shot, and pull up from mid-range, and combine that with Stevens' offense, and everybody's moving and stuff. I feel like you need to be a team that could switch across a few positions to really defend that, or you would just have to have some great on-ball defenders. Philadelphia fits the mold there, which is part of the reason why I'm still scared of them. In the case of Indiana, they're a good defensive team. I think a lot of that is Miles Turner. If Oladipo is back to being what he was a couple years ago, then he could certainly hold his own against some of the Celtics players. But you start looking at TJ Warren and Brogdon. Brogdon's a good defender. I just don't know if he's athletic and enough to deal with that. And I think the Celtics could also go at Sabonis, certainly. So there's some stuff there. Miami, Jimmy and Bam and Spoelstra, that could be enough to hold the Celtics back from just getting anything they want to and getting into the defense and being able to kick out to guys. But between Duncan Robinson and Iguodala, still going to be the awesome defender, and Kendrick Nunn and Dragic and Tyler Hero, Miami has a bunch of guys who I feel like when you really dare them to play defense, you could get the better of them. Now, it's a pretty safe bet that the Celtics will be seeing either the Pacers or the Sixers in the first round. I imagine the Celtics would definitely prefer to see Indiana. They can say that they don't matter who they're going to play, and they probably believe that, but let's be honest, Indiana's a better matchup for the Celtics than Philly is. Because the Sixers, for one, they put Thibault on Kemba, and he's been able to slow down Kemba at times. Kemba's gotten the better of him as well, but it has been a bit of a back-and-forth matchup. Ben Simmons, to me, he's first-team all-defense. Richardson's good. Tobias is not that good, but he's at least big, so that helps him out. And then, of course, you got Embiid sitting there again, so that one's tough. I don't know if the Celtics could get by defenders enough against Philly to have a huge advantage. I feel like that could be a bit of a slugfest type of a series if they meet. Some other X factors with the Celtics: Marcus Smart shooting. He was good this year from 3. His exact percentage, I think he was 36 or 37% on 4 a game or whatever it is. I'll pull it up as I'm talking. But I think we would all agree, relying on Marcus Smart to make some threes is still pretty scary. Yeah, he shot 35% on 7 threes a game. I didn't remember it being that many attempts. So we'll have to see with that. He's gotten better at free throws as well. Marcus Smart he's managed to keep getting better every year, so that's cool, but none of us would be shocked if he had a bad 5-game stretch from 3 against some good team, right? Other things to think about with the Celtics, the big man rotation. I trust Daniel Tice to do what he's got to do. I still feel like him defending Embiid in the post is a scary thought. but I trust Tice to be able to adequately enough do what he's supposed to do, set screens, box out, not be horrible defensively. I mean, he's a solid defensive big. But once you start going to Robert Williams and Enes Kanter, then I think it starts to get a little scarier. Now, the Celtics do try some no center lineups where it's Grant Williams, or sometimes they're daring enough to have Marcus Smart do it. I don't know, man. I feel like that stuff is more cute regular season stuff than effective playoff stuff. So I feel like they're going to have to at least have Kanter play a few minutes, and depending on the lineups, matchups, all that, it could work. I mean, weirdly enough, I think against Philly specifically, Kanter might not get destroyed because Philly runs so few pick and rolls. I mean, Kanter's not a good defender in space, but if you asked him to just not get pushed out of the way by Embiid in the post, I feel like he could actually have some success there, and he could certainly match Embiid when it comes to rebounding, so maybe that could be a thing. But if you're asking Kanter to defend Miami with all their shooting and Bam's passing abilities, I think then you're asking for trouble. And the Pacers run themselves a nice amount of pick and rolls with Sabonis, and Turner can pop as well, so then I feel like Kanter could have some trouble. So I do think the Celtics could look like a pretty different team depending on the matchup. I feel like other teams in the East kind of are what they are, whereas with the Celtics, it's like in one series you could see a lot of bigs, another series you could see not as many bigs. But one thing with that is if you're not going to play as many big guys and you're going to throw the Semi Ojales and the Grant Williams of the world into the game, there's a chance that, well, there's not a chance, this is a definite. Teams are not going to defend those two at all, and maybe they only play 7 minutes in a playoff game. Well, that can be the difference. I mean, if you have a horrible 7 minutes because it's basically 4-on-5 because the other team is not caring about Grant Williams in the corner at all, that could lose you the game. Especially if Marcus Smart is also having a rough shooting game. I mean, hell, even if Marcus Smart is having a good shooting game, teams are still going to leave him open because with as much talent as the Celtics have, you know, point guard through power forward in their starting lineup, you got to pick somebody to leave open. That's another interesting thing, though, is will the Celtics ever just put their 5 best players on the floor, which would be Marcus Smart with the starters? I mean, that's a small team. You can switch everything. I guess it really, again, it depends on the matchup. Like against the Sixers, you're not going to do that because now it's Joel Embiid posting up on whoever. But against, like, Miami, do you dare Bam to beat you in the post? He's a good post scorer, but he's not Embiid. I would imagine Sabonis would also be tough for that as well. I guess if we can talk about the Raptors and the Bucks now, this is implying that the Celtics have gotten by their round 1 matchup. I mean, against Toronto, oh boy, Nick Nurse and Brad Stevens. There'd be a lot of, there's a lot of athleticism and defensive communication and switching, and you're talking about 2 smart, athletic, talented teams, and in terms of just pure basketball, it would be amazing. In terms of being a Celtics fan, it's a pretty frightening idea. I mean, I don't know. That's the type of series where I really have to see how both teams are looking going into it. The things I could say now is I feel like they could defend each other pretty well. I mean, you're talking about OG Anunoby defending Jaylen Brown defending Norman Powell, Norman Powell defending Kemba Walker, Kyle Lowry getting switched onto Tatum and probably being up for it. I mean, Lowry defends 7-footers sometimes effectively. Marcus Smart being everywhere. I mean, there's so much that would happen in that series that, well, it could happen. You know, they're the 2-3 matchup. It'd be a round 2 if they both win their round 1. And the Raptors are definitely going to win theirs. And then if we talk about Milwaukee, I mean, a lot of the things I just said about a Raptors-Celtics series would apply to a Bucks-Celtics series. Just to be fair, I'm not even confident the Celtics can beat Philly. So when I talk about a Bucks series, do not think that it means I believe the Celtics are a shoo-in to make the conference finals here. I mean, to beat the Bucks, you've got to be able to do what last year's Raptors did. You have to be able to swarm Giannis while still not getting killed from three, which means the guy who is left open has got to be in a spot to where either Giannis can't see him, or by the time he does see him, you've closed out on him, which means you need tall, athletic, smart defensive players, which the Celtics have. So in that sense, they could be up for it. In another sense, it's still really difficult to do that. And even as the Raptors were successful with it, they still needed Kawhi to play great, and they also needed some really big shots from Fred VanVleet. So if we were going to place the Celtics into that same thing, does Tatum become the guy who needs to play like Kawhi to beat the Bucks? Yeah, probably. Unless you're going to have four guys averaging basically 20 points a game in a playoff series, which is not impossible, but let's be honest, that's probably not going to happen. So, yeah, Celtics playoffs. It's going to be interesting. To harp on it one more time, I genuinely don't know how I feel about a Celtics-Sixers round one series. I think the Celtics are better than Miami and the Pacers, but Philly, they scare me, man. They do. They really do. And if we get that series, then I'll have to bust out a prediction video, and I really don't know what I'm going to end up saying.